In 1804, the Serbs rose in rebellion against the Dahias. Within weeks, they won 5 battles, but the uprising is surrounded by new threats and even greater trials now lay ahead. The Dahias still possess around 6,000 troops, ready to strike, but their forces are scattered. Kučuk Alija, the most aggressive of the 4 Dahias, marched out from Belgrade with the intention of joining the garrison in Jagodina. At Vrbica, he encountered Karađorđe, who at that moment commanded only a small force, as many Serbian units had been sent away to rest. He immediately attacked and drove the Serbs back, with Karađorđe barely surviving. But he did not pursue, since he feared Serbian ambushes. This hesitation proved costly. He gave the Serbian forces time to reorganize and regroup. When they returned to Vrbica, however, they found it abandoned. Kučuk Alija had already continued on toward Jagodina to unite with the garrison there. Karađorđe first marched north so he could link up with additional troops and put both Belgrade and Smederevo under siege. The Turks in Belgrade attempted a sortie, but it was decisively repulsed. Vasa Čarapić, one of the leading figures in this region, was left to block the road to Belgrade, preventing Kučuk Alija from escaping back to the city. With this position secured, Karađorđe advanced toward Batočina and Jagodina. But before he could arrive, battles began at Ćuprija. The garrison there, hired by the Dahias and commanded by Alija Gušanac, was placed under siege by Mladen Milovanović. The defenders attempted several breakouts toward Batočina and Belgrade, but each attempt failed. Heavy casualties were inflicted, and the garrison was forced back behind its walls. When Karađorđe reached Batočina, he placed the town under siege, hoping to capture it and further cut off Kučuk Alija's route back to Belgrade. Throughout the day, Serbian forces launched repeated assaults, but the Turkish garrison fought stubbornly and held its ground. Realizing the town could not be taken quickly, Karađorđe turned south towards Jagodina, where he joined forces with Milan Obrenović. But Kučuk Alija soon learned of the siege at Batočina. In response, he detached 500 cavalry under Tosunaga to relieve the town, and then planned to unite his forces and crush Karađorđe. If this succeeded, the Serbian army would be heavily outnumbered. Yet, the Ottoman forces were now divided, and Karađorđe intended to defeat them separately. He immediately marched back towards Batočina, reinforced by the men from Rudnik Dahia. There, he gathered the scattered Serbian soldiers previously routed by Tosunaga's cavalry. However, he did not attack. Instead, he waited. The Turkish garrison began withdrawing toward Jagodina. He launched a relentless pursuit. Furthermore, it soon became clear that the Serbs had prepared an ambush ahead of them. Attempting to escape, they abandoned the main Jagodina road and diverted toward the Kijevo stream. The rebels pursued without pause, destroying nearly all of the infantry and killing the notable Husein Ganić. Around 400 Ottoman soldiers were slain. The Serbian forces pursued the remnants of the Batočina garrison all the way to Jagodina. There, they split into 2 armies, the main force under Karađorđe and the second force commanded by Milan Obrenović. Almost immediately, Karađorđe's army was struck by Kučuk Alija's combined force of cavalry and infantry. The attack was ferocious. The Serbian main force was scattered and driven back in flight. Milan's troops were meant to strike him from the flanks, but they were unable to cross the Belica river, as the only bridge was held by Turkish forces. Soon, the situation worsened. Ottoman troops crossed the bridge in strength and turned against Milan's men. At the same time, Gušanac ordered the Ćuprija garrison to attack once more, and this time they succeeded. The Serbs suffered a severe blow. Around 200 were killed and 20 captured, among them Petar Kara. Gušanac soon left for Belgrade, believing Kučuk Alija's army was enough to defeat Karađorđe. Kučuk Alija began preparing his men for the final strike on Karađorđe, but he underestimated him. Once again, Karađorđe seized the control of the situation, rallying the scattered men and restoring order. He urged them onward, reminding them of the cause for which they fought. And the consequences were immediate. Fresh Serbian forces arrived from the surrounding countryside. Karađorđe encircled Jagodina once more and gave the order to advance. The fighting was fierce and unrelenting. Shootouts raged throughout the streets for the entire day. Slowly but surely, the Serbs gained ground. Houses were set ablaze, and at last the Dahia ordered a retreat. Kučuk Alija himself narrowly escaped. He and his remaining men broke through one of the gates held by Mladen, who was later accused of allowing his passage. After the battle, Milan Obrenović returned to Rudnik with his men, while Karađorđe began pursuing Kučuk Alija, After a short engagement and a hard march, the Serbian troops were exhausted, and Karađorđe informed Vasa Čarapić of Kučuk Alija's escape. Čarapić immediately mobilized his unit and prepared an ambush. However, Kučuk Alija learned of the trap and altered his route. Čarapić rushed to intercept the Janissary column, but only his cavalry arrived in time. The infantry lagged behind. The exact strength of both armies and the number of casualties suffered is difficult to determine and should be treated with caution. Serbian numbers were most likely 1,000 and lost 300. Dahia's numbers are 2,500, but their casualties are horrific, more than 1,000 in all. Despite the defeats already suffered, one more Ottoman army was still ready to strike. The Bosnian force under Ali Beg Vidajić, crossing the Drina river at Loznica, Vidajić advanced towards the siege of Šabac. Local Serbian forces were meant to assemble near the monastery of Čokešina to block this threat. However, disagreements and lack of coordination prevented them from forming a unified plan of action. In the end, only the Nedić brothers remained, with just 303 men to face an Ottoman army of around 2,000. Nevertheless, they chose their ground carefully. The Serbs took up positions on both sides of a narrow, confined path that the Ottoman column was forced to pass through. They waited in silence, and when the Janissaries drew close, the rebels opened fire at point-blank range. What followed was a brutal firefight. Both sides fought with determination and courage, but as the hours dragged on, the Serbs began to run dangerously low on ammunition. The battle lasted for almost the entire day. First, the southern position was overrun. Then, after stubborn resistance, the northern position fell as well, where the Nedić brothers themselves stood and fought to the last. All 303 Serbian defenders were killed. Ottoman losses were severe, likely numbering between 500 and 1,000 dead. Although officially an Ottoman victory, Ali Beg Vidajić soon ordered a withdrawal. Meanwhile, Serbian leaders met at Ostružnica, where they drafted a list of terms under which peace might be achieved with the Dahias. These demands were widely optimistic, because in truth, the rebels no longer sought compromise. They wanted the Dahias removed entirely. These terms were swiftly rejected, and the fighting continued. In Belgrade, the Dahias attempted another breakout, but once again achieved no decisive success. Požarevac soon surrendered to the rebels, freeing Serbian troops and providing much-needed ammunition. Smederevo reached an agreement whereby the Janissaries would remain confined to the citadel and cease interfering with the surrounding countryside. Serbian forces then moved west, attacking Loznica and driving Ottoman troops back across the Drina into Bosnia. A truce was negotiated with Vidajić, and with no hope of relief, Šabac also laid down its arms. At last, in the summer of 1804, the Ottoman Sultan intervened directly. He dispatched Beşir Pasha to restore order. He negotiated with the Dahias and arranged their escape down the Danube, but the rebels were not satisfied. They demanded justice. Beşir Pasha was interrogated and threatened with death unless he revealed the Dahias' whereabouts. He complied. Milenko Stojković was sent out to carry the executions. With this, the uprising against the Dahias came to an end. But Serbian discontent did not, and Beşir Pasha assumed control of the Sanjak. The Sultan demanded that the rebels lay down their arms. The Serbs refused. Delegations were sent to Austria and Russia, seeking protection and support. The fighting will continue. However, the Serbs will no longer face renegade Janissaries, but the full might of the Ottoman state.